All right, let's dive in. You know, there's this silent problem in pretty much every workplace today, and it's costing companies their best people and their productivity. We're talking about burnout. But what if the fix isn't about working less, but about connecting more? Today, we're going to explore how communication and participation have become these absolute powerhouse strategies for building organizations that don't just survive, but actually thrive. Okay, let's start with a number that should really make you stop and think. 76%. That's how many employees say they've experienced burnout at some point. Just let that sink in for a second. That's more than 3 out of every 4 people you work with. This isn't some minor headache. It's a massive, systemic issue hitting most of the workforce, and it leads to less engagement, more people quitting, and a real hit to the bottom line. So this begs a really important question. For years, the story we were told was that burnout is your problem to solve. A personal failure to be resilient enough. But when you're looking at numbers this high, you have to ask, is it really about the individual, or is it a sign of something broken in the organization itself? Well, all the evidence is pointing to the latter, which means it needs a strategic, company-wide fix.
Now, to really get that fix, we need to look at the department that's right on the front lines, human resources. The thing is, the role of HR has gone through this huge transformation. It's moved way beyond just being about administration and has become a core part of the business strategy. And understanding this evolution is totally key to tackling that burnout crisis we just talked about.
This timeline really lays it all out. If you go back to the 70s and 80s, personnel was basically the filing cabinet of the company, all about paperwork and payroll. Then, in the 90s, it started to get a little more strategic, linking up with business goals. But today, wow, the modern HR function is a strategic partner sitting at the top table, shaping the entire company culture and, most importantly, looking after people's well-being. What this means is the whole playbook has been rewritten. The old way was all about being reactive, basically putting out fires as they started. The new playbook is proactive. It's about getting ahead of problems, building a workforce that can bounce back from anything, and driving real change instead of just pushing papers. And right at the very heart of this new, proactive playbook is one single thing that powers everything else: communication. And I'm not talking about those boring top-down memos that nobody reads. I'm talking about a real, two-way conversation that builds trust and makes people feel safe enough to feel like they actually belong. This quote from business professor Dave Ulrich just nails it. He says HR's job is to be a credible activist for employees. I love that phrase. It means being a real advocate, a champion for the people in the company. And what's the #1 tool for any activist? Powerful, effective communication that makes sure every single voice gets heard.
Now, that advocacy leads us straight to this idea of employee participation. And let's be crystal clear. This is not about putting a suggestion box in the kitchen. This is about systematically bringing employees into the decisions that actually affect them, from solving problems in their own teams to helping set the big goals for the entire company. It's all about creating a real feeling of shared ownership.
So what does this actually look like in the real world? Well, it means having ways for people to give honest feedback without being afraid. It means the company is an open book about its goals. It means leaders are actually accessible and have real conversations. And it means empowering groups like ERGs, those are employee resource groups, to give different communities a strong, unified voice.
Okay, so theory is one thing, but let's see how this all works in the real world. We're going to take a look at a great case study from 3UK, the telecom company, to see how they put these ideas into practice and got some pretty incredible results. So 3UK did something pretty simple but powerful. They actually listened to their people. Based on that feedback, they rolled out some amazing initiatives. They created meeting-free Wednesdays so people could have time for deep work. They added personal moments leave because they get that life happens. And even something as straightforward as a free flu shot program made a huge difference. Each one of these things was a direct answer to what employees needed, and the results were amazing. Better work-life balance, huge satisfaction, and a 25% drop in sick days. And that brings us to the payoff. Because when you build this kind of culture, where people participate and feel cared for, you're not just creating a nicer place to work. You're building a stronger, more resilient business that's ready for anything. The proof is in the numbers. 3UK's Employee Net Promoter Score, which is just a fancy way of measuring how happy employees are, jumped by 8 points. Now, in the world of HR metrics, that is a massive leap. It shows that people felt heard, they felt valued, and they were way more likely to say, yeah, this is a great place to work.
And here's why every company on the planet needs to pay attention to this. Staggering 81% of employees say they actively look for companies that care about mental well-being when they're job hunting. This isn't just a nice-to-have perk anymore. It's a deal breaker for attracting and keeping the best talent out there.
So at the end of the day, the payoff for investing in all this is just crystal clear. You get people who are more engaged in their work, they're much more likely to stick around, and they help build a company that's stronger and more resilient from the inside out.
So where is all of this going? Well, it's all pointing towards a future of work that's more human-centric, even as things like AI become a bigger and bigger part of our everyday lives.
It's so important to remember this. The whole point of new tech isn't to get rid of people. It's to get rid of the boring, repetitive tasks, the kind of stuff that filled up that old HR playbook. When we automate that, it frees all of us up to focus on what we humans do best, thinking strategically, solving creative problems, and building real connections with each other. And that leaves us with one final big question to think about. As technology continues to take over all the routine stuff, the real secret sauce for any company is going to be the human experience it creates. So the question for all of us is this: how will you champion that experience and make sure people stay at the very heart of your organization? Thanks for joining me.